What would you say is your biggest regret while you're in the service?
I'll give you two answers to this. One, the first one, I'll give you because it's kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. It's hard to pinpoint it to a specific thing. So this time I will do that, but I also will give you an overarching kind of theme of regret. So I'm just like that. I'm overarching regrettery. But so overall, I feel like I missed out on the opportunity to expand on my leadership skills when I was in the military. Part of that was due to lack of motivation. Part of it was due to injury. Um, I'll be the first one to tell you that I didn't put enough effort or the amount of effort that I should have into being good in the military. Um, I kind of took it for granted
Yeah.
when I was younger, and I was very young, and I had, I could give you excuses all day. I had, a lot of family issues and stuff, but at the end of the day, I didn't put enough effort into it. And lucky for me, I had some great supervisors that really put a boot up my ass. Like
Yeah.
they really, really put a boot up, lit a fire under me, and that brought out a lot more than I intended to put forth. Um, but what I see in the civilian world after getting out, and I'm by no means an expert in any of this, but what I see is an overall lack of leadership and a lack of leadership skills. Um, Now, a smart person would be able to twist this and say, well, you're just biased towards a style of leadership that's predominant in the military. And maybe they're right. Like you get a style of leadership in the military that is very bare bones. It's very forward, which I extremely appreciate. I do feel like I missed out on a lot of opportunity to hone my leadership skills in the military. But at the same time, I feel like I've had my best leaders, my best supervisors, and my worst supervisors in the military. I was able to take the pros and cons of both of them and mesh it into my own leadership style. If I had to pinpoint it down to one single incident, it would hands down it would be when my good friend and my team leader got blown up in Iraq. Um, you can, and if he hears about this, he'll give me crap for it. So be it. But because we've talked about this, and I had dinner with him where I was almost in tears, telling him how bad I felt about it. But um, he was so when I was in Iraq, I was we run in 3-man teams over there, and I was in Kirkuk in Iraq, and we had like 3 or 4 EOD teams there, I think. And one of our other teams, their team leader, his name was John McCoy. He got just by working out on the base or whatever, he broke his thumb on accident, so he was kind of out of action, right? And his he had 2 team members. One was a staff sergeant who was already team leader qualified, and just because of manning or whatever, he was the second. And then my buddy Edison, he was their third, right? So John broke his thumb and he was out of commission for a little while. So they bumped up Matt to be the team leader because he was already a staff sergeant and team leader qualified. And it was they needed an extra person to cover down, and I was off for a couple days, so they bumped me over to his team. And the second day out, we were going down into in Kirkuk, and some bad stuff happened. He ended up taking an IED blast pretty much directly underneath him,
Jeez.
and I didn't respond correctly. I I got kind of caught up in the moment. Um, like there was a lot of stuff going on. He instantly his arm was blown off, and I remember it being very visceral and very. It's interesting when you see a a person that is that injured. You see a white bone against so much other stuff. Like I remember the whiteness of his bone being very distinguishable. Like
Yeah. It's in
I don't know.
focus.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
And but I was so focused on his injury that I totally lost um what's the word? My situational awareness of
Yeah.
everything else that was going on because we were um I was alerted to a threat in the crater where he had been blown up because there was some other things in the crater, and I was the second on the EOD team, and they pointed out to me, hey, what's that, what's that, what's that, and I was so discombobulated and so you know I don't know what the word is. It
Shock.
was
I mean,
yeah, but I looked at it and I looked at it and I honestly had no idea what I was looking at. I really didn't. Come to find out, it wasn't anything that could have hurt anybody, but I didn't know that.
yeah.
Come to find out, so just to give you some context, so what had happened was um, we were sent to investigate a T intersection, right,
Hmm.
of dirt road, and the army had passed through there and they thought they saw an IED, so they threw out a chem light and then they left, right, which is I can go on about why that's not a good idea. But anyway, they left. So we got dispatched out there and we couldn't find anything after a long time searching. But there was a sign that had anti American propaganda on it, which our SOP was to recover it, right? So we drove the robot out and we pulled the sign out. And when we pulled the sign out, there was a lanyard attached to the post of the sign as we were pulling it out of the ground. And it was like imagine like a trying to think of a good way to describe it, but imagine like a plastic string, but a really thick one, right? A really
Yeah.
thick plastic string, kind of like a surgical tube almost, but like if it's full and there's no
Hmm.
hollow center, right? So really thick. And then imagine at the end of that string, there's if you take like a really thick Ziploc bag and fold it over on each other, right? So you got like a real thick piece of plastic, right? And that's all we saw coming out of the ground as we pulled the sign out. And we're like, well, that's weird.
That's not natural or normal or yeah.
Right. So, but we didn't see anything else in the ground, right? I mean, obviously we're really cued in on it, right? It's
The way the
nothing
camera works.
normal. Yeah. And, you know, on those robots, the cameras aren't the greatest, but we could clearly see that there was something attached to it. We just couldn't really tell what was in the ground still, right? So he went out there to investigate it, and in the course of investigating it, the device went off. So what it was actually two improvised claymores that were connected by det cord,
Mm.
right? So I don't know if you're familiar with what det cord is, but
Yeah.
imagine like a triple sized licorice, right? Like that thick, and it's in a cord, right? And it's full of explosives.
Hmm.
So basically, what it's meant to do is to ferry an explosive train from one area to another, so you can daisy different explosive charges via det cord.
Right.
Right? I mean, it has other uses as well, but that's one of the most common uses. And so it was connecting one improvised claymore to another improvised claymore. But what happened was, in the course of it exploding, the first improvised claymore went off, but the explosive charge actually cut the deck cord before it could explode.
Hmm.
Right. So that actually saved his life. Like he probably wouldn't be here if the second charge hadn't gone off. Um, but we could see in the crater that there was, some of the stuff left over, and it still looked suspicious, right? And they're like, "Hey, what's this? What's this? What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, it looks fine. Go, 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 go get him!" Right? And that one eats at me. I'm not gonna lie, um, because I was expected to step up and be the person that could navigate them through that hazard, and I just kind of told them it was okay, even though I didn't know any better, or even though I didn't actually know if it was,
Right.
which is probably the biggest EOD no-no of all time. I mean, it was rendered inert, pretty much. Not inert, but it was rendered safe,
Yeah.
just in the fact of functioning, because it split it in half, and all the initiator was gone and everything, so it couldn't reignite, obviously. But it was like, it's like if imagine if there's like a trained sniper, right? And he gets a shot at Hitler, or if it's like this is the one moment you've trained for your whole life, right? And then you miss it, or you
Right.
fuck it up, or something like that. So that's kind of that's how I've reflected on it, I guess. I'm just thankful that nobody was hurt because of my negligence.
But
But
that
that
all that also gives you an anchor of thought too, of to reference back to as you're thinking through future experiences and everything else. You might look back to that of this was my shot. I missed that shot, but therefore I'm going to train that much harder. I'm going to do things that much more precise in the future based off of that one opportunity that things didn't go well. So I'm sure that either consciously or subconsciously that's had some sort of impact on you deeper than a regret, because that's
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, nobody wants to have a repeat,
no.
right? I
No.
mean, credibility, because now I go, granted, it's a very small section of what I used to do, but it's a very specialized, like I've become very specialized in being able to use mine detectors to find IEDs and mines. And obviously, that's a very small portion of what my job was, but it's become very specialized,
Yeah.
right? But I'm able to reinforce that with my experiences, because a lot of people, just because of the tempo and how things have dwindled down over there, you know, people don't have my kind of experience anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to like hold it above anybody's head, like, a golden ticket or anything. I'm just, I do have that experience now, and I realize that it's actually, you know, granted, it's not the most, extravagant or crazy experience of a lot of people that deployed back when I did, but it is still something, and it's something that people, who are who I was in their shoes, 10 years ago, you know, it's stuff that they want to hear, they want to know more about. And, if my knowledge that I have now on mine detectors and stuff, or my expertise, or my, from when I deployed, if any of that has even helped save one person
Yeah.
from dying, then that's just enough, right?
Absolutely. That's
So I have a lot of job satisfaction for what I do, because it's a very underappreciated skill, but I do think that it saves a lot of people, um, from biting the dust, to be honest.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that people don't expect that needs to exist until there's something that could go boom and hurt a lot of people. Well, man, I really do appreciate you sitting down with me for the last couple of hours to talk through this stuff. And yeah, I really appreciate your service and all that you did, Pat, and continue to do to train up the future EOD folks in the world. And I hope to see you once all this COVID crap is gone beyond us, and maybe we could do this not in a virtual environment and sit down with some good equipment and do it. But man, I do
Oh, I'd
appreciate
love
you.
it. 'Cause, I mean, the rest of my body movements are way better than what's going on right here. So. But no, thanks. I was actually really touched that you were wanting to interview me. Uh,
Of course.
so
I
thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
story, man. I'm glad I had a chance to capture it.
Hey man, I got to give it to you. Like you were a very driving force in me joining the military because you know when I was once young and impressionable, and you were once young and not bald and skinny.
Yeah,
You
I had a little bit more hair on my head, and at some point it was
you were
blonde.
you were impressing me with your stories of the Air Force, and you were a loadmaster, right?
Air transportation. So yeah, push cargo onto airplanes. A little bit different than what you ended up doing.
Is that what they say? Were you a loadmaster? Air transportation?
It's very different.
Okay.
It's like calling you a combat engineer.
Oh, my bad, my bad. Well, you'll have to tell me offline what the difference is. I'm
Yeah,
curious, actually.
absolutely.
All
Cool.
right, brother.
Let
Well,
me
hey, thanks for bringing me on your program, man. Thank you very much.
absolutely.